Hello again. So today we're going to move on to the next type of shape, and that is a line segment. So let's get right into it. A reminder of our objective. We want to be able to use and identify basic shapes and terms. And how we're going to do this is by practicing along with the video. Uh, just as usual, there will be plenty of space for you to practice outside of what I talk about. So please feel free to do so. If you need to go over something multiple times, you can always rewind the video. If you feel like you need to skip forward, please feel free to fast forward. Um, and again, the reason why we want to be able to do this is because the language of math is important when we are in math class. So speaking in that language is good, and we are going to learn all the vocab for it. So today we're talking about a line segment, and basically the only difference between a line and a line segment is that a line goes on forever and a line segment specifically doesn't. So when we talk about a line, let's get a line there. When we're talking about a line, we go through and we've got arrows at the end telling us that there is no beginning and no end, and in fact, we should specifically infer that even though the arrow stops right here, it does keep going and on to the edge of the earth and beyond and this way as well, and just keep on going and going and going and going and going and going and going. But with a line segment, it specifically does not. And instead of a arrow on the end of the line segment here and here, we're actually going to put a point. And you can call the point whatever you want. I can use A, B, C, D, whatever. But the key is that sort of it's going to go and go and go and go and go, and then it stops at B, and it doesn't go any further. Like there's no line segment out here, just unlike this one where there is. It keeps on going forever. It'll keep on going even outside the bounding rectangle of the window here. But here, like A is the beginning, B is the end, and there's barricades. There's nothing beyond here or beyond on here. So that's really the only major difference. So let's sort of push forward here. I've got the exact same diagram from last time, and pretty much when we're going through, we're just gonna, instead of calling it line AB, we can call it line segment AB, and then we're just talking about all the points that start at A and go to B. That includes E, by the way. E's in there, so E gets included. It's everything from A to B and all the stuff in the middle. So calling something line AB, or line segment AB, when we're doing that, I didn't put the little bars here, but what I'm going to do is I'll make a little hat, and you don't have to put dots on the end, although you sure can if you like. I've seen it done where people say, oh, well, it's got to be a bar with dots on the end to show that it starts at A and ends at B or whatever. But as long as your hat does not have arrows, specifically, I do not want to see an arrow. No, so nothing like this. This is bad. None of that. Don't do no arrows, because we don't want arrows. We don't want to communicate to someone that it's going beyond. So the other key is if I call something segment A E. Last time when we did that, segment AE was the same as segment AB, right? Because they're both on the same line. It doesn't matter what 2 points we pick. But when we're talking about this situation here, when we have specific endpoints, if it starts at A and it ends at E, let me highlight that for you so you can see. If it starts at A and ends at, let me use a light blue, hopefully that shows up. If it starts at A and ends at E, we're just talking about that part. But now, if we if we change it up a little bit and we say, oh, it starts at A and ends at B, B is in boy. Well, now we're looking at a completely different situation here. Like AE is just from here to here, but AB is from here to here. So they're not the same thing, because there's this little patch out here that's included when we're talking about AB, but not when we're talking about AE. So just be careful. It doesn't matter the order as long as the 2 points that you use are the end points. So, for example, CA is the same as AC. If I wanted to write that out, segment AC is the same as, actually in geometry we're going to use this a lot, congruent to. We'll talk more about this in a little bit. Segment CA. That is to say, these two are the same thing in all but name. It's just, you call him Bill, but his real name is William or something like that. It's just a different way of naming the same thing here. Whereas calling AE versus AB, you're not talking to the whole person. If you're just talking about AE compared to AB, it's not, you can't avoid talking to the head. You got to talk to the whole thing. So these two are different, AE and AB. But if you just flip the letters around, it's still talking about the same thing. All right. So let's move on, and let's get to our little example here. There's a lot of points here. A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J. And you can use any two of those, and they will form a given specific line segment. Like if you want to talk about A, C, or if you prefer CA, remember those are the same thing, then you're talking about from here to here. That's segment AC. We gotta put the little bar over the top here. This is segment AC. But if we want to talk about, for example, segment BF, well, now we're in a whole different ballgame. We're talking about a completely different line segment. Even though there's a little bit of overlap, it's not the same. BF. That is segment BF. Right there. BF. That's what that one is. And again, remember, like I said before, you can also call it, use that symbol again, congruence, FB, and they mean the same thing. Now, this E out here, I can't use E if I want to talk about any of the line segments on the line. But if I drew a line segment to a plate, you can do that. I mean, like, I can draw one. Now I've got EJ here, right? This is EJ. Gonna get me a color there to highlight, and this is that guy right there. And then we call that EJ. Segment EJ. And again, when you're doing this, and you're writing stuff down, you totally do not have to write out words like segment. There's no need for that. You can just, this little hat over the top tells me all I need to know. If you just make a little hat there without any kind of arrows or anything, that tells me that I am talking about that line segment. The one last little thing here is, just like last time we had this Q floating around here, we can't use this. This Q has nothing to do with the line points themselves. Like here, this Q is not on the line. This is the name of the line. The whole line from infinity over that way to infinity over that way is called Q, or it could be, but it's not on the line. So you can't talk about a point Q on this line. You can't talk about a segment like GQ GQ is a magazine, but you can't call it on this line because there's no point Q. From G to where, it ain't no Q. You'd have to make a separate Q, and that would be confusing. So don't do that. Just this right here, this is not to be used for talking about line segments specifically. If you want to use this to designate the whole line, hey, this whole line, its name is Q. Awesome, great. But you can't use it for calling a line segment. All right, so that's it for this one. We will see you again